Yes, no code.
Hello guys, welcome to the Yes No Code YouTube channel. My name is Caio, and this is another episode of our No Code podcast. And as you can see, this is the first time we are recording a video in English. Hope you like it. So welcome new audience from all around the world. So yeah, we are trying to spread the word about no code. And today we have a very special guest. It's the first time that we have this guest on the channel, but the first time he's going to actually participate and say in English. The last time he participated speaking Portuguese, which is very nice. So welcome once again to the YouTube channel, to the Yes No Code YouTube channel, Christian.
How's it going, Caio? I'm excited to be here. I think we have so much cool stuff to talk about, and
For sure.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for accepting the invitation to participate once again. First video we recorded, it was really amazing. A lot of people talking about the video and the tips that you gave to all of us. So today it's going to be like a kind of a podcast session, not like an interview. So no scripts, really easy conversation, entertaining conversation. So let's see how it goes. The idea here on this video, on this podcast, is to actually talk about no code and help to spread the word about it so other people can know and join this revolution, this movement. So we are going to have like just one first topic for this session, which is like all around what people are creating with no code. So I think a lot of people, when they join no code for the first time or they hear about it, they wonder like, what can I do with no code? What is possible with no code? So this is a very common question. And as I know, like you have a digital program, a training where you help people to become entrepreneurs, and they use no code to allow them to build their own startup. So could you tell us a little bit about your program, and also we can talk about what people are creating like with no code and through your program. So I think you have like some examples you can share with us. So that's why I invited you here, so we can talk about this.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's always super exciting to talk about no code. And for all the Brazilians out there, um abraço para vocês. I'm sorry that your fellow Brazilian mate is switching to English. He's being super mean to everyone, but I know that that he's trying to grow his channel, and there's so much cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just messing with you. No, yeah. So basically, we are no code. So my background, I've built several startups. I've had an exit. I've failed startups as well, and some of those were just profitable companies that I ran. I got into startups training when I was invited to become the director of an accelerator called Startup Boost. We trained over 100 startups there, and they raised over $50 million in funding and got into like Y Combinator, Techstars, et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, that kind of like started a whole new path in my sort of life, which was this idea of like enabling other people to build with no code.
Mm-hmm.
But it really, no code only really came into the picture because I was non-technical, right? And back in the day, there was no option, right? It was just basically, how do you figure out how to build an app or a prototype without having any technical skills, right?
And without becoming a programmer, right?
Exactly. So we focus on building startups at We Are No Code, and we have a program that essentially teaches people how to build companies. We teach no code as part of that, just because no code is the smartest way to go about building your technology early stage, right? Because it's very quickly adaptable to the market demands, right? You come in, you have assumptions, and then you realize that there's a different market demand. You have to adapt the value proposition and even your app or website or whatever. So, for us, we just see this as like, this is the natural evolution of programming, but also it's really the natural evolution of entrepreneurship as well, where we're sort of coming full circle. Technology is becoming more accessible. We're seeing more no-code platforms essentially come out that have more and more, cutting-edge technology as part of them. Like just the other day, there was one called Buns that essentially allows you to create dApps, so decentralized apps.
Nice.
They partnered with Bubble, so you can build the front end in Bubble, and then the back end can be decentralized. So kind of playing into this whole blockchain economy or Web3 that we're starting to enter in. Anyway, let's not get too nerdy in that stuff. You asked the question about kind of what are some use cases that people are building. I think first of all, there are a huge number of use cases. that are being put together, and it's kind of like always being pushed by what is possible. Now, the reality is that I try to take a bit of the emphasis off of like building complex software at first, because at first you just have an idea, like you have no idea how the market's going to react to it. So what's more important is to bring ideas and product offerings to market and see how the market is reacting to that, understand who is your target customer, who's not your target customer. You don't want to focus on the wrong people early stage. You can waste a lot of time that way. And so in our program, we have people who are building all sorts of things. We have people who are building sort of marketplaces where people are they have a whole set of buyers and a whole set of sellers. One specifically is focused around that for in the Japanese market for translators. So it's basically to get Japanese English translations, and there's a marketplace for that, and they take a commission.
Kind of a Fiverr version of Japanese translation.
Yeah, and I think those are the opportunities in the marketplace arena at the moment. You know, all the big ones have been kind of taken. You think of Amazon, you think of Airbnb. There are a lot, but there are so many niches. And when we talk about niches, we're talking about multi-million-dollar niches that people simply don't necessarily, like secondhand sneakers, huge market. We see even just adapting the concept of something that already exists in one country to a local sort of economy or culture that might not be sort of the main interest of some of these major players. We also see people building like online programs. We see people building messaging apps. We have one student, for example, she's focused on, her name's Heidi. What she does is she built a company called Aware Health. So it's basically a business-to-business solution for muscular skeletal treatment. So, people like me and you wouldn't know this, but like the biggest expense for employers is that, people's necks are hurting, people's backs are hurting. It's muscular skeletal issues. And in the United States, at least, like it costs, like if you go to a doctor with these problems, they're going to bring you straight to the operating room, basically. It's very quickly. So she created a SaaS platform that essentially allows you to do preventative care, which means that you're taking, if one employer is essentially getting her service, she charges per user per month, and she's able to monetize because she's able to give this treatment, which is way cheaper for the employer, and it's like ridiculous. Like they're saving like 85%. On those
she's also innovating in the business model itself, not only on the platform or the way of building her business.
Well, not necessarily. Yes, but like it's still SaaS, right? It's still just like we're giving you access to a way to treat yourself in a more effective way than going and operating immediately. When most operations also are proven not to, are proven not to really solve the problem. So it kind of like is just about, hey, let's put some of these, I think a big opportunity is for people who have specific knowledge in one field where there are things that are broken and only really they and, the people who are in that field understand it. And then you can create solutions to solve those things, because the unfortunate thing is that most of the time we take it as like, oh, that's given, no, that's just how it works. It's like, and that's why a lot of people kind of say like, oh, you should go into markets that you don't know, because you're always going to be seeing things that people don't see, because people are so jaded by the sort of existing ecosystem in that domain. So that's like one other example. So Heidi, basically, she started from scratch. She had zero technical skills, literally. She was a research specialist, and she was also, taking care of people's like problems, musculoskeletal. And she jumped into the program. About 11 months later, she had launched and scaled her business to $7,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And it was the first time she launched a company. She had no technical skills. And right now she's about to scale that so that's 200 monthly active users that are paying users. And she's about to scale that to 2,000 because one of the employers wants to deploy it now in the entire company. So, some of the things that she's facing now and that we're helping her with is like, B2B sales, of course, product. Like we don't just teach no-code, we really help people along their startup journey. And I think that's what differentiates us from a lot of other no-code sort of education platforms or courses out there at the moment. I mean, we have another.
There's much more than just no code itself, right?
There is.
Just
and
no
that's the
code
biggest
is just
problem.
one part of the equation, right? So.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm speaking really quickly. I'm just so excited about this stuff.
No worries. And I hear you saying all these, and I imagine like this is the beauty of no code, right? So like a lot of people creating like new solutions that maybe a lot of people inside the tech world wouldn't imagine, and those people coming from the tech side, like from not non-technical side of businesses and like zero technical background at all, and they come with like different ideas, different solutions, and then they meet no code, they are able to create their own startups, and probably no one in the technical field would imagine building that kind of solution, because like we are always thinking about the same stuff and living in the same like bubble, and then those people, they come with like different ideas, fresh ideas, and they can really innovate. That's the beauty of it, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it's like, we should continue to kind of talk about the fact that, most technologists, that's where their area of expertise is, in building things, right? Not necessarily in the problems that are in the market, not necessarily in industries that are worth solving those kind of problems. And so it's like, there's advantages to both sides. And up until now, it kind of seemed like it was all in the hands of technologists. But now, the reality is like every opportunity is a technology opportunity, right? You have to have a website, you have to have an app, you have to build something at least technology wise, and you want to distribute it online most likely as well. So there is no such thing as a non-technical founder anymore. Either you learn some skills, and now with no code that's super accessible, or you simply are, maybe a salesperson. And that's also fine, but it's just to understand that, entrepreneurship at the moment, you have to learn a number of different skills to increase your chances of succeeding with
yeah. And what else can you say? Like what other examples?
Another great example was David and his team. So two team members, they came from USC. So that's a school here in Los Angeles. And essentially what they did was they built a company called Crutify. So it's this cool platform where you can essentially like party online. So it's like live streaming of events, and they charge a membership fee for that. So they kind of went through a couple accelerators at USC, and they had the same frustration as a lot of people have. Like they had thought a lot of things out. They had put together a pitch deck, a financial forecast, all this cool stuff, learned entrepreneurship, but they were stuck on the product side. So they jumped in and immediately built a first product in 10 days. Were able to get 2,000 users in the first 3 months. And now they're winning pitch competitions that are being like, where the judges are the managing director of Techstars LA, the founder of Zillow. I don't remember his name exactly. It's like Radcliffe or something Radcliffe. Oh, man. This is going to look back in retrospect when it's recorded and I can't change what I said. but it's so that's another example. We had someone who came who essentially he had a t-shirt printing shop, right? And then he realized that there was more opportunity in it. This was a founder of color. He really felt like he was not being supported properly, and essentially he came in with kind of an idea like, hey, I have this idea, and built a SaaS platform for t-shirt printing companies. And guess what? He had all the contacts in that industry. So, he was charging $1,000 a month to each one of those people. So it's, you can really build interesting things. And, I can go on and on. There are examples of people like, there are companies like Comet who have raised more than $13 million with platforms that were built in no code. There's a friend of mine called Nadeem who built Nuage Stay, which essentially is like a luxury Airbnb. He scaled that from a couple $100,000 to $5 million in annual revenue with no code tools. You have another, like Plateau is another company, for example, that got into Y Combinator, again, built with no code. I think there's kind of like, since it's still the early days, we haven't yet seen the results of how incredibly powerful these technologies are. But now they really are coming out.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, now we know that we're going more into the mainstream, because as soon as you have examples which show like people making absurd amounts of money, guess what? People pay attention.
Exactly.
Not to mention, yeah, I mean, not to mention that like right now it's like we have hundreds of millions of dollars going towards no-code platforms. Like Notion, the day before yesterday raised $275 million for their no-code building platform. I believe it's a growth round, which means that it's a Series A and post Series A. I believe it's a Series A or Series B. And yeah, you know, it's like this is very obvious to investors even that empowering the creator economy is something that has to happen. So yeah, those are like some of the examples. I mean, I think we had a conversation around like what kind of tools are people using to build, right?
Yeah,
like
that's one of the questions that I would ask. Like you talked about a lot of cases and a lot of different examples of what people are creating, what kind of companies they are building, and their valuation, the amount of money they are making. That's really amazing. And one of another thing that comes into my mind when we talk about this is like, what are people using to create those businesses? Like what tools they are using, Bubble, Webflow. What do you see in your program? What is the most used tool?
Yeah. So I guess there's a differentiation between what's happening in the, well, there isn't a differentiation between what happens in our program and what happens in the general no-code space. I actually just created a YouTube video right now that talks about the 5 best no-code platforms. So if people want to check
I saw your video. Yeah, guys, go check that video. I will link the channel down below so you can check Christian's YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, so I've been talking about these things for a while, but that's just overwhelmingly the most asked question. And I think people ask, what's the best no-code tool?
Yeah, they want to know like what is the silver bullet, but
exactly, there's no silver bullet.
Yeah.
However, I can talk to you a little bit about sort of what we teach within our program as a way for people to, and then also some of my insight into what kind of tools are. So it really depends on a couple things.
Yeah.
The main things are, what are you trying to build? The other one is, what phase are you at? Which very much determines what you should be building. Like you shouldn't, if you have just an idea, don't go out and build out the whole product. That's a huge waste of money and time.
Exactly.
It depends on your experience level, right? Are you someone who uses social media? Are you someone who has played around with a couple no-code tools? Are you someone who can basically like is a developer, understands the concepts, never touched no-code? Like that will make a difference in terms of the tool selection. But I think people have a really hard time right now figuring out which ones to use. I would say that if you are in the phase at which you're trying to build like a test, you're trying to test the market, I would recommend a tool. I would recommend Webflow for that. However, if someone's really
building like just a landing page to maybe fill out some form and validate if people are even interested in your idea, something like that, like a smoke test or something.
Yeah, so a smoke test is one thing to validate the idea, but I think that from a smoke test, what you have to understand is that you're trying to get the feedback of these individuals. So you're actually, a smoke test is all about understanding the customer needs and building a relationship with that customer before asking for that person's money. And that's really powerful because it's basically building a pipeline of users who you'll be able to potentially will be some of your first paying customers. And so there are different ways to do that. You know, a landing page, definitely. I think that every different company should go straight for the kill, as in like you should be proving or disproving your business model. So, you know, just
without
a landing
fear
page
of being wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Your biggest fear of being wrong is being wrong too late, right?
Yeah.
So like the best thing you can do is run an experiment, see how it works. Did it work well? Great. We'll continue, double down on that. Did it not work? Why did it not work? Great. What's the next experiment? But yeah, essentially building a landing page. The reason why I say, by the way, Webflow is simply because I think that Webflow has use cases which are way beyond sort of just building out the product, right? And sometimes there are going to be limitations in terms of what you can build. But it's one of those tools that can give you a lot of power in terms of like business operations, in terms of onboarding new customers, in terms of a lot of different things. And so for entrepreneurs, if you're investing your time in one tool, that'd probably be one that I would invest my time in. That being said, I'm also, it's pretty clear now that some of the deepest builds that we're seeing within our company, but also within kind of the greater community, like the most complex apps are being built with Bubble.
Yeah.
And so Bubble, the problem with Bubble is that, it takes 6 months to learn. It takes 3 to 6 months to be good at Bubble. And that's really putting in a solid bit of time to be able to get to that place. So it's amazing for people who want to be able to have that flexibility to build complex software. But it's also, we try to avoid people getting into that as much as possible. That's because our audience is more the kind of person who's looking to build a business versus trying to become a developer or trying to build all types of platforms that they want. So
Makes
usually
sense.
we'll try to keep, so we teach Bubble within our program as well, but it's something that we, if there's another tool that can get us there quicker, then we're going to use that tool.
Yeah.
So, and there are a lot of pros and cons. It all depends upon the business philosophy that you have. I learned the hard way, buy before builds. Basically, buy something, pay for it, rent it until you prove the model or people want it, and then you can go ahead and invest the time and money it takes to build it. And that works. That concept works in a lot of different sort of arenas. So, I'm happy to talk more about that if it's of interest. But other tools that I see people building with and that I'm a fan of is Adalo. It's great for native mobile apps. It has Component Marketplace, which allows you to grab pre-created
components.
modules.
You use material design, so you don't have to take care about the design as much as other platforms.
Also all-in-one builder, so that's kind of like that's fun as well. They also have a solid integration with Zapier, so it allows you to access different technologies. Now, it doesn't necessarily have the same API functionalities and as Bubble, so you're going to be more limited in terms of what you can do. If you're building cutting-edge technology, basically, like Bubble is probably the place you're going to want to look, just because of its more robust API calls and workflow management, database capabilities. Then we see, another platform which I think is pretty great, just because it's very easy to learn, is Glide. So if what you're trying to build, or a first version of what you're trying to build, could be replicated, like what's the core thing you're trying to prove, right? Do people want this? Do they not want? So after you've created sort of a Webflow or card or whatever unbounce landing page, and tested the market with it to understand what the specific offering they're looking for is, then if the first, second, and third, or first main feature that people are looking for you can build within Glide, then that's something that I highly recommend, just because it's much easier to learn. And the idea here is that we're trying to push a business forward. We're not just trying to build the technology.
You can replace this after like a few attempts and then build everything in Bubble or any other tool that you like, right?
Exactly. And the other thing that I'm finding is that, we tell people to go about the journey of building and launching and all that themselves without developers, simply because, and many of the people in our community are developers, by the way. But basically, just because it's much more cost effective and you need a lot of flexibility early on. But then later on, it really is just this, I guess it's a trade-off, right? How much money do you have? How much time do you have? Even if you have all the money in the world, you should not go ahead and build the entire idea you have in your head. That's for sure. And I can tell you, I've seen thousands of startups.
Unless you want to throw your money away, then
it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But at the stage at which you've proven the model, you have customers interested in this, and now you're looking to build a more robust thing, we also have people who are in parallel looking for co-founders, trying to hire people who are going to build the next version, because they have some resources, they have the money, they don't have the time. If you have more time and no money, then you're going to want to learn the tools and build yourself. And these are just trade-offs, right? But the interesting thing in everything I'm saying is what I just mentioned earlier, is like money can't buy product market fit. And I can tell you the people I've seen who have lost, I can tell you a great story of someone who built an entire platform, very successful sales, like head of sales for a large company, essentially got some money as well from some of his friends for an app that would essentially make you earn money for, I guess coupons or like benefits from like walking around, right? And then you can claim those in local shops and get free coffee or whatever. The problem was he built out the entire platform with all the money that he had and his friends had, and had users that were using the platform But when it came to the monetization model, and after a short conversation, he was essentially asking me for help, and it was very clear that he was going to have to completely rebuild his entire essentially startup, right? The entire product was going to have to be rebuilt to be adapted to those, to the business model that he was tackling. So it's
too late to find out. Then
too
the
late.
money
And
was
$800,000 later. $800,000 later. And telling your friends and your family, and that things didn't work out. So I don't think it's a problem, because that person was seemingly in a good financial situation in general. But the people who have the most money end up being the people who waste the most money when it comes to entrepreneurship, and that's kind of interesting. I kind of like the fact that it evens a little bit the playing field. Like, I'm not going to say that someone who doesn't have any money has an advantage here. That's clearly not the case. But it gives that person an actual shot if they're willing to work hard. And that's something that prior to this, if you were non-technical, was out of your reach. You just didn't have the money to pay for developers. Learning how to code is going to take 6 years, or a year minimum to build basic things. And so it's a very interesting concept. So, sorry, I got off track. Let's talk about a couple other platforms. I think Software is a pretty cool one, because Software now, like, if you're building membership areas, if you're building, like, it's I'm friends with the founder as well, and that's not why I'm recommending this, because
it's really a nice tool.
It's just a quicker way to get to where you're trying to get to.
A little bit more limited in terms of features, but I think they are getting there. So the thing with no-code tools in general is, like, some of them are like more years in the market, so they have developed more features. They are more capable of doing things right now, and others are trying to compete, and they need to get there yet. So, but they are still good alternatives. But yeah, we hope that all the tools can evolve a lot, so we can get more out of them.
That's an interesting take, actually, and I think it really depends. Like, I see some platforms like Software, they launched like 2 years ago, and they're doing great, just because they really focus on, like, hey, people who really have zero skills, and how can we get them to do certain things. Now, you're totally right. There's limitations in terms of what they can do. But I see other platforms who have been in the market for a really long time, who are going after trying to build everything for everyone. Like, hey, let's deep functionalities, when it's like they're going after people who are 100% non-technical. So I don't know. I think that some people are just focusing on different things. And when you talk to the like Emmanuel, the CEO of Bubble, or you talk to Vlad, the CEO of Webflow, like, they don't even see that they're competing in the same arena. They don't consider themselves like competitors pretty much at all, because what people are really using their platforms for are very different things, right? And their communities are very different. Now, will they potentially go head to head 5 years from now? Yeah, I think so, because I think Bubble will probably go deeper in terms of, like, being easier and having a better, like, design side to it, because up until now, that's the thing.
Responsive
and
features, those kind of things that right now Webflow is really good at. And that, at the other hand, like, Webflow doesn't have all the capabilities that you have inside Bubble in terms of workflows and automation and database.
But you see that that's where they're going, right? You see it because, like, right now, Webflow, for example, just launched their membership area for, like, so what that means is that now they're understanding, okay, we need to kind of get a bit into this SaaS game. And both have expressed interest in mobile app building. I know that Emmanuel was talking about something like 2022, but who knows, really? Like, I don't believe that these people will fully, divulge their full strategy, which makes a lot of sense. I think they're really focused on different sort of use cases. I'd say Bubble is more for people who want to be programmers but don't know how to code and want to go quicker. And then I'd say that Webflow is more for people who are designers or non-technical people who want to build, like, websites, like, who want to build landing pages, who want to build, like, partnership pages, who wants to create, like,
they really focus on the marketing chain. So they have a huge speech focusing marketeers in general. So I think they
so it's marketers and designers. And so I think that those, and Adalo, again, it's like they're basically the ones who have the deepest capabilities when it comes to native mobile first, right? Because Bubble, you can create a progressive web app, which allows you to basically push a web app into the iOS and Android store, which is awesome because you can like update in one place and everything gets adapted. But it's not a native mobile first. And so, you know, it's just awesome to see like more and more people like, and they're like, Airtable is probably one of those companies that people don't, you know, like everyone knows it's a no-code tool, but people don't really understand the full extent of what you can do with it. When it comes to like internal tools, internal management tools, like, oh my God, you can set up amazing like things. Like you can set up a Trello in 10 minutes. Like you can set up like a something that goes from like lead to like a sales pipe drive, you know, within a day, 2 days. So I think that they're also really interesting. And like if you look at Softer, what Softer really is, it's a layer on top. It's a design layer on top of Airtable. So you see now companies that are just saying like, hey, if you have if you have kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, like there are possibilities to transform that into an app, and that's what Glide's kind of promise is on their website. You know, same thing with Softer. It's like it's based on Airtable.
Exactly. Another tool that's doing the same is Bravo Studio. I don't know if I've heard about it, but it's really aiming designers as well, people that use Figma, so they can use Figma as the front end layer, and then the back end would be served with Airtable databases. So it's really nice to see this evolution as well.
Yeah. Also, My V1, which is a platform that was built here in California. I'm friends with Jeremy as well, and who's the CEO. And he was basically, you know, he realized early on that there was that opportunity, right? There's some elements that people are already have already adopted, and then there's to play within that. So he also has the Airtable sort of integration, which is really cool.
Nice. Okay, last question so we can finish this podcast session. Has been great so far. Thank you again. In terms of scalability, how you see that with the cases that you mentioned, like are people being able to scale their businesses still using no code, or do you see them moving to another solutions after a certain time?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I'd like to say here is that don't worry about the future when you start off building. Like people,
maybe you'll not get there at all, so don't worry too much.
And that's a great problem to have, right? To scale out of the tools that you're using. And I think that people worry too much about that, and what happens is that they don't even try. It's like, oh no, I have to go straight to this other thing. It's like, no, like you don't understand. That's simply not the right approach. Now, I mean, I think that there are a lot of interesting factors to talk about here. Let's see. What should we start off with? Like, what element of it do you want me to talk about?
Well, feel free to say anything you find relevant. I mean, like, one of the biggest questions is like when people are skeptical about no code, they say like, oh, this won't scale, or I will have problems after I reach a certain level, like, or when I get a lot of users. So they really start like second guessing this way to go, because they will find some problems down the road. So
and so that's the biggest thing is figure out what platform to build with for right now, for what you have to do right now. Don't focus about scalability of this. At the beginning of startups, you have to do a bunch of stuff that's not scalable, and then you'll be very happy to know that all of these platforms are working on scalability. We back in the day, we saw that people on Bubble, which was kind of the more scalable platform, were kind of getting stuck like 100,000 monthly active users. And then they were like, oh, okay, well, and then they actually built it out custom. I've seen some French companies do that, because Bubble is sort of founded by a French person. So a lot of the early users were actually French. But now, you can basically several 100,000 monthly active users can be within Bubble. Webflow, I'll give you like the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can scale pretty nicely with Webflow, but I've heard from companies, for example, Teachable Discover, who is the one of the arms of Teachable. They've used that. They have a massive audience. And when they were using Webflow, they kind of hit such a high capacity. The Webflow started wanting to charge them quite a bit more for the kind of server costs. So it can get a little bit more expensive, but it's just by far the best thing to go with right now. And all these platforms, like that's what they're doing. They're adapting the scalability based on the people who are like way ahead of you. So if you're starting off now building on any one of these platforms, chances are by the time you scale to the place you think you're going to be, someone else will already be further than you, and they'll have those capabilities within that. You've seen already a dramatic sort of increase in capacity in some of these apps, and I'm excited to see how that continues to play out. But no, in general, it's not a worry that is serious. A couple other ones which are not serious are IP. It's like, oh, but like, what if I build on this platform? Like, it's not going to be my IP. It's like, yeah, everything you build is your IP. People don't really understand that. It's like, it's like thinking that you use a specific coding language and then that IP is someone else's because they wrote the coding language. It's just not the case. Now, I think that's a worry that people have that's also doesn't make sense necessarily. Where is the data stored? So that really is another question that pushes people away from it. Is it secure? It's pretty secure. Trust me. Each one of these platforms, they're getting audited and they're doing penetration tests for cybersecurity, so that, because they protect their platform and all the builders, they have the responsibility of all the builders on their platform. So they're very serious about this, and they're going to be a step ahead of you and your small development team for sure when it comes to cybersecurity and data protection. Now, we also have people in our program who are building Hipaa compliant solutions, which means that the database has to abide by Hipaa compliance, which is a measure that's essentially about protecting patient data. And that's only for sensitive patient data. So some of those use cases, like no one right now is saying that they are Hipaa compliant within the no-code industry, apart from a couple databases. And so, if you're building something like that, let's see, I'm trying to think of all the things that people like say that are like keeping them away from no-code.
One thing they say a lot is like, can I get the code and download and install my own server or something like that? Because I don't know, they want to make sure like they own the thing that they built. What would you say, like, in terms of this insecurity?
I would say buy before build. Like, unless you build something and you completely have finished the build, you'll never touch it again. And then you want to migrate it to AWS. Like, there are some platforms like Webflow, you can extract your code, if you want to, and you can migrate that to an AWS server. So there are solutions, where you can actually do that. Now, if you ask me, the ability to have access to the editor in real time and pay like $20-$50 a month to be able to do that when we're talking about a company that is generating revenue, like that's peanuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it costs more to hire one developer in your company than to pay for every single one of these things. The other thing is that you don't necessarily have to be too worried about the back end too, because they take care of all that stuff. So you're just one individual building stuff, or two individuals building stuff, and then everything else is taken care of. So I think that that's another worry that people are. The reality is people are scared. You know why they're scared, Caio? Because failure is scary. Because people have put what they do connected to who they are and how good they are. So if you attach your achievements to your own self-worth, that is a very complicated thing to happen. It doesn't give you space to fail ever. And that's kind of the society that we are living in right now. So I believe that people basically have to learn how to grab things and just take action and learn by micro failures, which is basically just like, oh, I built this thing, it broke. Yeah, it broke. It's the first time you're doing it. It's fine. They did a really interesting study actually that really really pushes this point forward. They did a study where they gave people 100 days to build amazing vases, right? And they had two subjects, right? They had two different test groups, let's call them. One of the test groups was told to create one vase every day. And the other one was told they had 100 days to create the most amazing vase. And when they looked at the vases on the 100th day, it was so obvious that the people who had created 100 vases were so good at creating vases, and these other people were not at all. That's because practice makes perfect. But also, practice builds confidence. And confidence allows you to be as crazy as it takes to want to build your own company. Now, there's a difference between confidence and overconfidence, or ego, like too ego driven. But I think that confidence is maybe the most important thing in entrepreneurship. How do you get confidence? By learning skills and feeling like I can do it. It's not like hey, look at my Mercedes-Benz kind of confidence. It's like actual confidence. So
you should give it a try. Like, at least you will feel inspired to try something, not scared or not over empowered or thinking that you are a Superman or something like that. But you want to try, you want to do, and you don't care if you fail, right?
Yeah. And I always say this, like, everyone has a friend, or everyone's in a situation where they have this idea and they've had it in their head forever. I'm like, how do you sleep at night? Like, how can you sleep at night? Every single night you're thinking about this idea, you're talking about it to all your friends. It's way quicker and easier to test it out in the market and be right or wrong. However, that's not what people want to hear, because people only want to be right. So it's like, be comfortable with things that are uncomfortable. If not, entrepreneurship might not be the right path for you. That being said, I'm a big believer that everyone can learn entrepreneurship. Like, you get used to things. I started being on video about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, and it was terrifying at first, and it wasn't necessarily because I was scared of speaking in public or anything. It was more about, like, it's a totally different format. Like, I'm talking to nothing. It's like I'm looking in the lens of this thing, and I'm basically like having to act like I'm as excited as having a conversation with Caio, which is actually interesting. That's where I think a lot of the fun interaction between human and human happens, right? Which is why I also try to do interviews. But super uncomfortable. I did 5 of them. I was a bit less uncomfortable. I did 10 of them, 15, 100. Now I'm like, I can't even count them anymore. And I'm doing all sorts of, now I'm on TikTok, and that terrifies me. So it's like, there's always going to be a new thing that terrifies you, right? Like, I don't know how to speak to kids. What do you?
Yeah, really nice. You have to learn how to dance and talk about entrepreneurship at the same time.
Actually, you know what? Dancing is a great example. Like it's like, you're never going to learn how to dance by watching 1,000 YouTube videos about dancing.
Yeah,
like, exactly. You're just not. And so I think it's the same thing with everything. It's like, you just, at first, let yourself not be good. Like, adopt a learning mentality. For me, the way that it happened for me was actually, I was very lucky. I was very young. I was traveling around the world, living in different countries. I was with a bunch of Brazilians, and I don't speak a word of Portuguese. And then I start speaking 1 word, and everyone's making fun of me. I start speaking 5 words, and people are starting to make fun of me again. I start speaking 100 words, and now people are starting to correct me. And then I'm speaking, 1,000 words, and now people are like, wow, your Portuguese is amazing. E agora eu falo português, vamos aí. No, but I think the point is that it's adopt that beginner mentality, because when you jump into new and exciting things, I believe everyone should really be investing in their own growth. And most of us are just looking at other people and being like, oh my God, that person is so great at that. Like, I'll never be as good.
Comparing to each other really kills everyone's motivation.
Oh, for sure. Everyone has that experience in the math room, right? Where you go up to the board and you get humiliated, and then you're like, I'm just stupid, I don't math. And then they actually don't ever learn math. Why? Because they're scared and they're traumatized that they're going to be put in that. No, I would question those educational institutions who do that kind of thing. But I think that the bottom line is, we have to be willing to be vulnerable to grow, basically.
Yeah,
because
I'm doing this right now, creating the first video in English.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. And when you interviewed me in Portuguese, I said a bunch of things wrong. I looked at the interview again. I was like, oh, cringe. But it doesn't matter. I did it. And it's out. And I'm happy about it. And the more you prove to yourself that you can do things that you previously didn't, weren't able to do, that's the confidence that starts coming in. That's what, if I can do that, okay, maybe I can do another thing. And change doesn't happen overnight, right? No one goes to the gym and does 1 million push-ups and then they're ripped. Right? Yeah. It's about going consistently. It's about consistency, and so that's another thing that we do in our program. We don't We're not like an 8-week boot camp because we know no real company is going to be built in 8 weeks. We give lifetime access right now, and we're going to be moving towards annual memberships because we understand it takes a long time. And people sometimes have every hour of the day for 2 weeks, and then sometimes they won't have 3 months to work on it. It's like, that's not a good strategy. Just invest a little bit of time every week. Just commit 2 hours, or maybe let's say 30 minutes a day for 30 days.
There's something called micro tasks or something like that. There's a book about it. So yeah, that's the mindset. If you don't have time, just do a little bit every day, like even if it's like 2 minutes, and then eventually you get going and you do more than you planned. And that's the idea. Instead of doing less than you planned, because you planned a lot of tasks, then do small tasks and achieve more than you planned, and then you overcome and you overcome yourself, your planning, and then you get more excited to do more and more and more, and things start get going.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's just small steps, and we kind of expect ourselves to change overnight, and it's like we're being so hard on ourselves. Like, no one will be as hard on you as you are on yourself. Well, except in like YouTube comment section, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I wanted to talk about one last thing before we leave.
Ahead.
Is that don't forget that everything is rooted in the human being that you are. And so taking care of yourself mentally and physically, which also translates mentally, is going to allow you to do a lot more than you can even imagine. And the reason why I say that is because we're all in a mind that is feeding us thoughts automatically. And I think it's really the reason why there is this movement towards, essentially like, practices like meditation, yoga, all that, is because suddenly we can actually not necessarily be completely run by our crazy mind who's constantly feeding us nonsense. We can listen to the things, understand what's going on, and be like, okay, I'm being rough on myself, maybe this, like, and I think that's really the key as well to entrepreneurship, because it's in unlocking that you understand, is this a decision I'm making out of fear or out of or love, they say, or whatever it is. But I think that it's like the first thing is just being conscious that, your mind is trying to push you away from things that scare you, because it is a fight-flight reaction, which is like programmed in us for thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. So that's another thing that I would say is really important. It's like, this is an experience which will grow you like personally and like professionally as well. But if you don't pay attention to the personal, like, it's going to reflect in your professional life and vice versa.
Yeah, good advice. Awesome. I'm really excited because this conversation was really nice. Of course, we had a main topic, but I know this is a conversation. The idea of the podcast is to be like easygoing, and then we can talk about any kind of stuff. And it turned out really nice, like a really amazing conversation with a lot of amazing thoughts on entrepreneurship and no code. And I think everything is connected somehow. So really nice, Christian, to have you here one more time. And then I will say, like, we should do more of this sometime. Like, let's see. And you are always welcome here on the channel, because you have like an amazing experience, and you always are. You are always very inspiring. And well,
I appreciate it.
I just want to thank you.
I want to thank you,
yeah,
for doing this in English and putting yourself in this situation where you're uncomfortable and you do it anyway. Hell yeah, that's what I love seeing in people. And for me, I've had definitely awesome times in entrepreneurship. I've had terrible times in entrepreneurship. So I really empathize with people who choose this path, because it's like, it's not easy,
Yeah.
So I'm always here to support people who are making this decision. So congrats to you, man.
Thank you. And for those who don't know Christian and want to know more, I will link his YouTube channel here down below on the description, on the video description section, so you can go there and check Christian's YouTube channel. We Are No Code. Check the program as well. See if that's for you, if you want to become an entrepreneur, and if you want to jump into this no code world. You are very welcome to go there and check the website. They have an amazing program, and I'm saying this for free, like, because I really think that, and there is no payment under the hood here. It's spontaneous, I swear. So yeah, thank you so much, Christian. And you are always welcome here on the channel. I hope you guys liked this video. Feel free to subscribe. If you are from any part of the world, you are very welcome here on the Yes No Code YouTube channel. This is a Portuguese YouTube channel. I am a Brazilian guy speaking English here, but feel free to subscribe. I will try to bring more content in English anytime, but as you're gonna see, most of my contents are in Portuguese, so I hope you understand. But yeah, can we try something like, can we say to finish the video, 1, 2, 3, yes, no code, let's see how it goes?
Let's do it.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, yes,
no code.
Bye-bye guys, subscribe, like, and share.